Level 5.
I was going to sing, but all your faces were so serious, so it didn't bother me.
It is level 5, the day of level 5 announcement. It is the Daytrippers. Everything just seems so bad at the moment, but we this won't last for long. Andy will put this right very shortly. Tonight, it's Ray, your host, and with me, I've got Andy Young. How are you doing, Andy?
Oh, well, kind of as well as can be expected.
Yeah, bearing up. We've got Phil Casey. How's it going, Phil?
I'm fucking angry, Ray, to be totally frank, right? I'm not messing around tonight. I've never been angrier. I've basically spent the weekend being the Incredible Hulk. I've been green with anger since Saturday morning, right? Even before the match happened. But I'm angry. I'm angry. Like, not only do I have football I hate at this point in time, I hate the government. I hate this country. I hate what we've become. I hate that we've no cogent strategy for living with a fucking pandemic after 8 months of being thing, and I'm dealt with fucking Muppets going on tonight with the same bullshit, and they're going to have us back in a lockdown by the time we get to fucking the end of January. They're already saying this. Those gobshites are standing up on stage trying to be fucking presidential. Go ask me bollocks. Go ask me arse. Go ask me bollocks. He's lost the plot, and he's lost the fucking ability to govern in this country. Fuck off. And as for you, VAR and FA, and then the rest of them, they can all fuck off too.
Yeah, but look on the bright side, Phil. Christmas is on. Christmas is on. Right.
Fuck Christmas, right? Fuck Christmas.
Phil, we'll move on to Pete in sunny Barcelona. How you doing, Pete?
The same as Philip Casey, except in Spanish. It's the same mess over here, except we're not quite locked down. They've locked us down. We're not allowed. The pubs, bars, and restaurants are closed. Everything else is still on. So there's no logic, no order. Welcome to the madness, but in Spanish.
Yeah, very good. Right, so tonight we're going to cover a few areas. As usual, we'll cover 4 topics. The first being we'll take some time on VAR because it would be rude not to. We will then go on to success. What does success for Liverpool look like this season now after the events and the catastrophe of losing Van Dijk for the season and Alisson still out? I'd like to touch on that in a wider sense, and the fact that this league is starting to look bang average right now, and I'd say a pretty low points total will be enough. And then Pete wants to get into some of the potential defensive reshuffles that we're going to need to see to navigate our way through at least till January, through this pandemic and through this catastrophe that is the absence of Van Dijk. So before we start going down the rabbit hole too much, we've had one presidential
start as I'm going to continue. Forget this.
Play, going with just to prove that he does live in America. He's on the Celta. We've had one presidential style announcement tonight. We're going to have another. We are going to hear a speech from Andy Young. He's been allowed 5 minutes to address the top Reds nation and the extended LFC family, because I think, quite frankly, we all need it after what happened on Saturday and into Sunday with some of the kind of shite that we've read and the repercussions or the non-repercussions for people who were involved in all of that stuff on Saturday. So, Andy, the platform is yours. Your audience is waiting with bated breath.
Dead with this Matt Lum, Mawalian. No, look. Toppest red, biggest super red going, but we're all pissed off. I don't know whether you watched the lads last night, the A team. I'm sure we all did, and in the comments, I want to see what the lads thought in the comments. But I think Shawnee put it very well. I don't think I could put it better myself. Possibly, who better than Jurgen Klopp now to have with a situation like we have with Van Dijk? He's not going to be going into the dressing room and telling the players the season's over. If anything, he's going to be using this as an extra motivation. Jurgen Klopp has managed to against any adversities that's ever faces, we've always managed. No matter what, against Barcelona, where we know Salah and Mane, we've always managed. We've always managed to do the business. Someone pointed out a thing there to me. Maybe I'm clutching at straws, but I thought it was an interesting theory, the Ewing Theory. Have you ever heard of the Ewing Theory?
No.
It depends on which Ewing you're talking about.
JR or Bobby?
Exactly.
Who shot him?
This is Patrick.
If it's Bobby Ewing, I hope that we all wake up soon. It's all a dream.
It's Patrick Ewing, and basically the premise of this theory is that when a team loses their star player, if that means like that they're sold, or they've been injured and people write the team off, there's a reaction from the rest of the team. The team feel like they've something to prove. You've got players like Joe Gomez who people are doubting now, not looking at anyone in particular, Peter. You've got people that doubt Matip. It's funny how these small injuries tend to go away when a player has a hunger to stay on the pitch and prove himself. I'm not saying that these injuries are faked, but players, for professional footballer players seem to able to raise the game or find an extra level somewhere within them when they need to. We might spend time this year with Henderson having to play centre back, THIAGO, Wijnaldum. It's going to probably happen, but if we can keep Matip and Gomez fit, we're not going to be too bad. You know what I mean? Klopp always finds a way. If that's a system change, and I know we're going to get onto it later, Pete. If that's a system change or just a different defensive approach, sitting the back a bit deeper, so be it. It's very early days. It's a mad season. I don't look at any team that started off well like Everton or Villa, and say that they're better than Liverpool.
Who's the
threat,
what I mean?
Andy? Who's the threat? We'll get on to. I would still say it's City, and the only concern I would have about City is that maybe this might be an extra motivator for them. But Klopp will have this boxed off. All right, Klopp will be telling the players to do it for Virgil, all them lovely words, but the players have his ear, and Virgil will be there throughout around the training ground, carrying out his rehab. He'll become part of the coaching staff. I'm sure of it. He's going to be there. This team have come a long way since Virgil and Alisson just patched things up and made us go from an 80-point team to a 99-point team. The team have developed as well. And it does a massive disservice to players like Trent, Robbo, Alisson, Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson, Keita, Bobby, Salah, Mane, all of these great players. It's such a disservice to tell that our season's written off. Now, I don't know how many people are out there saying that the season's written off, but I felt it in WhatsApp groups, and in across Twitter. I felt it. I don't know how much of a representation of the fan base it is, but this season isn't fucking over. This season is just beginning. This Klopp era is just beginning. We've won a first league title, and we're gonna win the league again. I'm fucking mark me words. We're gonna win the league again if the season finishes.
What's this topic again?
Oh no, this was Andy's fight. This was Andy's pep talk for all.
Mate, that was the president. That was the president. Have respect for the president.
Look, that was the president of the Association of LFC Daytrippers.
It's talking much fucking sense as Michal Martin.
Great teams have lost big players like with great managers like United with KEANE. It's happened. He had long layoffs. We're gonna have Virgil out for pretty much the whole season. But we have fucking plenty of quality. So we'll always score more than the opposition. We're well able.
Okay, can I just interject on this ridiculousness that it's the fourth most ridiculous thing I've heard all day today. To think that we can just go this season and not have any impact without VVD. Look,
I didn't say there was no impact.
Sorry, Andy, but the fact is we were a top four side until we signed Van Dijk, right? And we went from third, fourth to challenging for the league. And we haven't bought another defender of his quality into that back four in any way, shape, or form. I know this is Pete's thing, but just on that, right? We cannot be that naive to think that if we lose Van Dijk for a season, that suddenly we can just be as good as we always were and we can roll on. And the thing is, the issue that we have is that Van Dijk gives us 10 to 15 points a season. And we were always wondering about how are we going to drop that many points that we aren't challenging for the league. Now we're at that point. Now we go from a 97-point season, realistically, to an 82-point season. And an 82-point season is still more than 2 points per game. Like, this is what we're talking about. This is where City went from 98 points the previous year to 82 points last year. having lost Laporte for the best part of half a season, and he came back towards March. So, we can't be naive about this. And the other issue is our replacements and our backups to Van Dijk. Matip, man, I could wet some kitchen roll here, and that would last longer than Matip will over the course of a season. And that then brings us into the final bit, that essentially, by going into this season with 3 centre-backs and 1 notoriously injury-prone, we had a significant weakness in this squad. Of all the places that we had a significant weakness in the squad, which was centre-back. And I said it on this over the summertime. I said we needed to sign a centre-back to replace Lovren. I wasn't saying that we had to someone to replace Van Dijk, but ideally I felt we needed somebody that was as good, if not better, than Matip or Gomez, and then they become your third and fourth choice. In reality, Matip is the number 2 centre-back, but because of his injuries, he really is a number 4 centre-back, and you need another centre-back in there to challenge with Gomez and be Van Dijk's partner. But now we're in a situation where we are trying to figure out how do we go back to super attack and outscore all the opponents, right?
Yeah.
We have what we need at this point is, and Ray, you can take it on to, if you want, into my topic, because it probably runs into it, right, in terms of what it is. But what we have now at this stage is we've gone from what we believe would be a potential championship winning side to a team that is losing its spine. It's lost the spine of its thing. We have Firmino, who can't score in a bottle with 10 black American Express cards hanging out as jocks, right? We have Van Dijk is gone and Alisson is gone until at least the end of the month, right? So we're missing. If you look at what's going on here, this is the spine of a team that's been irreplaceable for 2 seasons. And now we have to play with those jigsaw pieces missing, or to find those jigsaw pieces. So suddenly Klopp has gone from, here is my jigsaw, this beautiful jigsaw that I have on the wall here. It's perfect, it's done, everything fits, and it's all grand. And this is why we're able to defend and attack and move around and challenge in Champions Leagues. And now we're in a situation where all those pieces have fallen off, and we're looking at going, is that a tree? Is it a frozen picture? Is it the sunset? Is it an Anfield? What is it? And this is where you can't turn around and say losing Van Dijk is not a big impact on us. Van Dijk is a fantastic once-in-a-generation level player. And that's where you can't just go, we put Gomez and Matip in and everything will be all right. It will be all right for 60% of the games. But to win a league, you have to be all right for 85 to 90% of the games.
Who else, well, we're going to talk about it later, but who else is going to be better for 80% of the games?
Yeah, we will. No, we'll come back. You've got a point, Andy. We'll come back onto it. We've sort of drifted into Phil's topic. He's kind of jumped the queue there with his topic. So it sounds like, Phil, that what you're saying is we've got to expect a significant drop off, which is fair enough. We'll get on to the defensive reshuffle a bit later on when we get on to Pete's topic. But one thing I would argue, Megan McKay and the point there up on the chat there a little while ago. The one thing we have got different to what we would have had when we were trying to outscore the opposition was, and we may still have to cope with it for the next 2 or 3 games, but we will have a world-class goalkeeper. So say, for instance, we had a drop-off down to the low 80s because we've lost the heartbeat and the spine. I get your whole point about Firmino as well. What does, in your view, what does Alisson potentially bring us back up to? Can we still win this league as long as we keep Alisson in goal for the balance of the season when he comes back? Do we still have? Can we paper over those cracks if we've got a goalkeeper there who's world class? We might actually see a bit more of him, Phil, because for some games we've seen barely any of him.
Honestly, and this is why I brought the thing. I wanted to know, what does success look like this season when you've lost the one of the best players in the world, if not and the best defender in the world by a long shot, right? This is like Barcelona losing Messi right now for the rest of the season, right? Or losing Messi 4 or 5 seasons ago when he was in his peak form, and that's what it was. So for me, Alisson now, we talked about how much Alisson brought to this side. He changed the team from being an 85, 86 point team to being in the 90s. Because he stops making those stupid mistakes that Adrian does. He stops making the stupid mistakes that Mignolet does. And in the big moments, he comes up with huge, massive saves. We need Alisson to come back and perform at the level he was performing, not in the second half of last season after he picked up his injury and came back after the spell out. Remember, he missed the first 10 games of the season and came back. We need Alisson to come back in the form that got us to the Champions League final the year before that.
Napoli form.
And I think, to be fair, and I can sort of buy in a wee bit to Andy's point. I totally believe that performance levels in this next 10 games come up a level because they're all playing for Van Dijk, and that's fresh in their memories, and they're all playing. What happens is the novelty of that wears off, and you need to make sure that you're on a run of games to make sure that you can maintain this, right? But if we can get Alisson back within the next 2 to 3 games, and we can just soldier through the next 2 to 3 games and pick up 9 points in the next 3 games, right? And we get Alisson back in there, it gives what it will do is it will give a huge lift to the team. It'll give a huge lift to those players, and it will give them that sense that they've got some sort of reinforcement that they don't have at this moment in time. So the drop off in points to me is maybe not 15 to 17 points from where we were last season. It's more likely to be maybe 10 points, which takes us to 87 points. And honestly, if we finish with 87 points, I believe that only one team will finish potentially could finish in the 90 points this season. And if that's the case, we're going to be thereabouts come the end of the season. But it's going to rely on us not having any other major injuries. And you just wonder the way we play and the way the sort of performance levels that we have, muscular injuries. We've got Henderson, who's getting a bit older. You've got THIAGO, who took a heavy knock in that Everton game as well. So what does that look like? I don't even want to be talking about top 4. I want to be challenging. I think we can challenge for the title, but where I thought before we will be fairly safe in terms of breaking the 90-point barrier with Van Dijk there, I don't see us breaking the 90-point barrier this year.
I don't think
just on, Andy, just still on this kind of subject. The next 2 league games, Sheffield United at home, you would hope, and that leads us into them Man City on the 7th of November. You would, if we have to stick with Adrian, and we got Champions League games around those league games, but 2 very winnable home games where we should be absolutely dominant, where we should have enough in other areas of the pitch to be able to win those games comfortably, even if we leak 1 or 2 goals through some sloppy defensive play and maybe a goalkeeper error here and there. If we get through those next 2 games with 6 points, we get on to Man City, we've got Alisson, we maybe have established a bit of a rhythm, some kind of a partnership at the back. Do you think we can start to feel like this isn't necessarily going to be sort of doomsday for us? Because to be honest, I thought we were still far superior in that game, even when Van Dijk went off.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, the ship needs to be steadied. We need to get a result against Ajax, and we need to win our next 2 league games. That'll set us up lovely for Alisson coming back and playing City. Absolutely. City's still going to be considered a massive, massive game and our biggest rivals this year if we want to win the league. We got the response we needed against Everton. The game didn't go away for various reasons, which you get onto as well. But it was a really, really good performance. If we had won that game, we would have been singing the praises of THIAGO and Henderson in that game. The midfield against Villa was pathetic. It didn't screen. It didn't defend with our back 4 as a unit at all. It didn't press. It didn't do anything efficiently like the midfield normally does. But against Everton, it was back, and it was quality. So we just need to see a response now from the Van Dijk injury. We got a response against Everton after a shit show against Villa. We'll get a response for Van Dijk, and then it's just all about steadying the ship. And I'm as positive as it can be. We could play 10 games and wonder what we're missing at all.
Yeah, Pete, just on a couple of specific things around this. So first of all, going back to Phil's point about outscoring teams, we need Mane, we need Salah, we do need Bobby to step up. But it was encouraging on Saturday to see how razor sharp Mane was after his enforced absence, and even Salah, with that worldie that he scored. The front 3 and being able to consistently put our chances away are going to be more crucial than ever now, aren't they, with the inevitability of keeping less clean sheets?
I think, if I'm honest with you, we've always relied on the front 3 anyway. We nitpick about Bobby, and let's face it, I don't care. you know, what if you are the system, you know, as the myth lays out, you need to, if you're wearing that number 9 jersey in your back, you need to weigh in with goals. But Salah and Mane are pulling up trees. I just don't think there's any need to panic, and we'll talk about the defensive issue and restructure later on. I don't think there's any need to panic at all. Last season we were absolutely miles, a chasm ahead of anybody else. This season we may not be that chasm. We just have to be competent. This is a very, I know you've touched on earlier on, it's a very average league. Let's not get carried away. You've got Aston Villa at the top of it. You've got Everton by virtue of the fact that they've played absolutely no one at the top of it. And Liverpool exposed Everton, really, I thought,
massively
this weekend for what they really are. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti is an Italian Joe Royle, to be quite honest with you. You know, they've got, Alan was bypassed for 90 minutes. These are players that are supposed to be coming to the Premier League. You know, people were talking about James Rodriguez. James Rodriguez is nothing but a cheat. And he's a show pony. This league, again, everything outside of Liverpool and 75% of what Manchester City has is average in this league. No need to panic. We'll talk about the back four a little bit later on. I understand. I take Phil's point. Virgil van Dijk is on a different, not planet, not solar system, a different universe to everything that's available. That's Virgil van Dijk. You know, we'll talk about it, you know, in terms of what I believe that Liverpool will do in terms of Fabinho. I mean, you know, because you cannot have that triumvirate. Let's be honest. Let's talk about it. You can't have Matip, you can't have Gomez, and you can't have Adrian as that triumvirate. You just can't. You can't. If you're going to be credible, and
maybe for Sheffield United and West Ham, maybe for those
not even. I would fancy Billy Sharp. I would fancy Billy Sharp in and amongst that triumvirate. To be quite honest, you can't have it, and you won't see that triumvirate. And somebody, I think Megan made the point earlier on. You'll probably see Fabinho there. For me, that's the answer. But let's talk about it earlier on. Listen, Liverpool. My point now is Liverpool are miles last year, miles and miles ahead of everybody. Now we just need to be that little bit ahead, keep everything calm. And I think what Andy said earlier on in terms of Virgil van Dijk, he doesn't even have to say anything. He doesn't even have to say anything. He doesn't have to say a word. I think I froze there. He doesn't have to say a word. He just has to hang up.
No way.
It was like there's a couple of the newspaper clippings, you know, a couple of the lads that have been writing us off over the level. Just hang them in the dressing room. The rest will take care of itself. Competence will take care of itself, to be honest, with Liverpool. Yeah, we'll be fine.
I think they should get a cardboard cutout of, you know, life-size cardboard cutout of Virgin, just put it in a spot in the dressing room for every game.
Yeah.
Give them a bit of extra motivation.
See that, Joe Gomez, that's what you will never be.
Yeah. So Phil, let's just close down your kind of what success will look like. Would you, obviously we're already out of the League Cup, I presume, again, been the FA Cup. Do you think we have to almost kind of choose whether we go after the league or the Champions League, or do you think it's realistic that we still try and, you know, navigate both of these competitions?
Right. If you ever ask me, should we bin off the FA Cup again, I'll come up to your house and I will find you and I will kill you. We should never even put a team into the FA Cup. We shouldn't enter that competition. We should just tell them to fuck off, right? And that's the end of it. Never, ever. The League Cup, we should only play the under-11s in that thing. I enjoy the kids. Let them out to play. It's enjoyable to watch. Give all those young fellas a thing. FA Cup, nah. Never want to see it again. Never, ever want to see the FA Cup again. I don't even want to see it on the television. I hope it falls apart. I hope nobody ever plays it again, right? So our focus should be the league and the Champions League. And the Champions League for me is such a special competition. It's the competition that I love watching, love seeing us involved in. The finals are so special. Europe, just Liverpool in Europe is just that unique thing that we have that no other English team has anything like us about it. Nobody has the heritage. Nobody has anything like that. So in reality, the Champions League, I'd like to take it serious, but I don't believe it'll be played. I don't think by the time we get to February, we'll be playing any Champions League games. I think that I think this Champions League is doomed to failure. So in my mind,
it's the first thing that will go.
Yeah, I honestly do, because what happened
international football didn't. You know, there doesn't seem to be any common sense to this
But Pete, what's going to happen now is, if you look, Italy has gone into a higher state of restrictions that are gone in there. Right? They've banned all amateur sport. Only Germany is the only country in all of Europe at this moment of time that's managing to get, Denmark, that's getting crowds back into games and managing to keep it going and not seeing an exacerbation in cases, because they're the only countries that have a proper tracing system in place at this point in time. Ultimately, a country is going to ban a team from flying into it in the same way it happened in the last round of Champions Leagues when this whole thing broke down, when Roma couldn't fly into Spain, and that ended the Champions League. The same thing is going to happen. There's going to be that some country is going to prevent an English team flying into them, because England are the carrion of COVID in global terms at this stage. So that's, to me, that's where this thing ends up. And for that reason, our focus really should be on the domestic league, because this is such a fucked up season. When you say to me, what does success look like? We could get 75 points and win the league. It's such a fucked up season. It's
so unpredictable.
It's so unpredictable. Nobody knows what's going to happen. You've got 1 week, you've got City losing. I looked at the table and I was like, hang on a second. We've had 2 shit results and City are still miles of points behind us. United are in Division 3 or something at the moment in terms of what they are. And they won a game and they were celebrating like they'd won the World Cup. Like, then you look at the top of the league and you've got Aston Villa and you've got Everton. They think they're in 1986, right? So it's like, it's just bizarre. And in the same way that bizarre league that Leicester won, something mad could happen. Burnley could win the league. I heard they played a match sometime at the weekend. I've no idea what happened in it. Like, honestly, you look at Spurs at the weekend, they're winning the league. Everyone is Harry Kane and Son and Gareth Bale, and they're giving them the trophy. By the time it finished, Mourinho's getting sacked and Pochettino's coming back. All right,
well, that's Twitter. Yeah.
No, but this is what I'm saying, Pete. This league is all over the place, and the only thing that really goes for us is that all defenses in this league are shit.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best defense in this league will probably win the league, because no team can defend at this moment in time. You look at it, United's thing, hairy head, random fella, cornflakes packet person. You look at Arsenal, load of random fellas. Nobody knows. Even the Arsenal fans don't know who they have as defenders. City, load of fellas jumped up on pads, running around the pitch, can't defend, save their life. Guardiola doesn't know how to defend. Chelsea, they sign all the players. They have the worst manager in Europe. Doesn't really make a blind bit of difference, right? If Chelsea sacked Lampard tomorrow and put Pochettino in, they'd probably win the league at a canter. That's my own genuine opinion. I think he would go in and fundamentally change that team and make them so dangerous to play with, right? But I look.
Frank Lampard is managing like he's playing a video game. He hasn't a clue.
He's not managing. He's not managing. He's not managing, and he'll be sacked by Christmas. So in reality, this is the problem, Ray. When I say what does success look like, success is mounting a successful campaign to compete for the title. I never expect us to win, but the way I would have expected us to win had Van Dijk stayed fit, right? I would have expected us to win had Alisson stayed fit, and it's not just a Van Dijk thing; it's an Alisson thing as well, right? Like, you can't take the two of them out and not have an impact. So for me, that's why I just think it's potentially the bizarrest league. So success for me means that we solidify our position in the top 2 in the league, regardless of all the madness that goes on. We focus on that, and we potentially deliver a title on less than 85 points, which would be the first time it's happened since Leicester was there. Is that good enough? Who knows? If that happens, who knows? But to me, that's where we should be aiming. That's what our focus should be on. And to be fair, I hope at the next Merseyside derby, I would like somebody to. I know people are meant to say it, but I hope Pickford gets snapped in half. I hope if somebody goes in and 2-foots him and smashes his leg in half, I won't. I'd be like, the way the Everton fans have reacted to Van Dijk and the things. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I'd
prefer to see Richarlison. See him. I'd fucking do him myself. That's a
really.
Pickford's an idiot. Yeah, I'd more feel.
It was reckless. It was reckless, he's done.
Right, he's incompetent. He's not at the level. Whereas Richarlison, you see him trying to make a name for himself by doing somebody. I'd love to give me 10 minutes in a room with that cunt. I'd love to see him. He is a malicious bastard. 23 years of age, and he's got 2 or 3 red cards for the same fucking thing.
Oh yeah,
Pickford has an excuse. Pickford's a fucking idiot. Let's be honest with you. I don't know how the fella has a professional contract with anyone, but see that Richarlison, he's trying to be something that he isn't, and he could have done serious damage. The tackle on THIAGO was I'm not going to say it's worse. It was worse in terms of intention.
Way worse intent. Yeah.
Do him myself. Do him himself that Richarlison. Do time for him.
It was criminal, and he knew exactly. He knew the context. He knew if he was going,
of course he did.
For 1 minute.
Late in the game, he doesn't need injury time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know.
Cowardly.
I know. Right, I know we're not meant to say that. Like you're not meant to wish injury on somebody. But I'm sorry, when somebody goes out to do a player, right, and does it with intent, about RICHARLISON and Pickford, don't really care. Like they deserve to get what they get. They deserve their comeuppance, and that's exactly what happens to them, and it serves them right. Like, to be totally honest, that's where the emotion feeds. And if you think that our players aren't going to be really up for a battle in Anfield, like, that could be one where they're happy to lose if they can go out and just get revenge.
I'd say Andy Robertson is sharpening his knives as we speak, because that fella has one of the worst tempers I've seen since Steve McMahon. You know, he will go for somebody, and I think, Philip, you're right. He's one of those lads. Once it's 2 or 3-0, he'll just go through somebody, and I'd say it'll be Richarlison. Because if I was him, I'd say, right, with 2 or 3 up at Anfield, I'll just go through this fella for a meal. See that Richarlison? He could be done for 2 years, and I wouldn't blink an eye. I can't stand it.
Don't think the bookies will even bother pricing up a red card at Anfield. There's absolutely no point. No point.
Nailed on.
I'd send Shaqiri out in a man at arms gear from He-Man and just have him go around launching himself at fellas head first.
So look, we'll come back onto the league as a wider conversation in a little while, but we've sort of got into some of the incidents in the game, and Andy, we may as well let you sort of take the floor again, and you've got a few things to say around VAR, yeah?
Well, I feel like it's a wrong topic now, because the lads are all worked up. We want to smash heads in and all that. We start talking about VAR. The lads will be turning up at Stockley Park and burning the transit van out. No, I wanted to talk about the narrative around VAR. The conversation about VAR itself is boring, right? Let's face it. Picking the bones out of VAR. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the narrative around it. And what pisses me off more than VAR, like, I'm a supporter of VAR, right? I'll say that, but I expect it to be a little bit better this season. You know, it doesn't seem like there's much progress out to be made. But what annoys me more than that is the narrative around it, and that's pundits who are paid a lot of money. I'm always saying it, we're only dickheads on a podcast that do this as a hobby. These guys are paid a lot of money to go away and research things, and they've actually got researchers there to tell them what to say too. None of these guys are clever enough to make these things up themselves. But it baffles me that the confusion that a pundit and commentators add to the VAR thing. Why on earth were they still questioning where the line gets drawn? Why were they talking about armpits during pundits and commentary? Why did it go to Klopp? And Klopp says he's a supporter of VAR. You expect him to make the right decisions, but he's done 10 interviews, and everybody told him that was onside. Yeah. Well, it wasn't. Going by the laws of the game and how VAR is done, and the new handball rule, which defines the shoulder as down to the end of your sleeve, so you can score a goal at the end of your sleeve. Why on earth are people that are paid to understand this not informed? Why are they creating so much confusion on social media that it creates so much noise, right? That the people who are fully responsible for making the required changes in VAR to improve the game, it gets lost in the noise and the madness that they create, because they all come off as psychos. And things like what happened to Virgil with Pickford, that should dominate the headlines, because it was a huge failure from the officials, absolutely massive, that they didn't go on and then review the red card. That's a fuck up, right? It's a human error, and it's a fuck up, and it's VAR shouldn't allow these things to happen. But talking about the offside and being in complete denial that that's offside, look, lads, that was offside. Tough shit. You get them and you don't get them. You benefit 1 week and you don't benefit the other week. That's the first really massive costly one, right? It costs us 2 points basically, but the other one is kind of costs us not so much like a red card would have change anything for Virgil. But it's caused an awful lot of anger and bitterness and people making a fucking complete laugh at Virgil. It's sickening. When we have VAR conversations, people need to, first of all, the commentators and pundits need to educate people and not be winding up the public and making them make loads of noise about things that, look, VAR has improved the game. It gets more decisions right than before. Okay, we're going to have these mistakes, but there's absolutely no excuse for what happened in the Pickford and Virgil clash, that they didn't go on and look at it. But stop with the bullshit and stop. Like, it's, I don't know how you feel about it, but when it's mad that your only reliable resource to educate yourself and find out what's right and wrong with VAR is to go onto Twitter and read your man Dale off ESPN. That's even referees that are paid to be on BT, they don't seem to be in tune with everything. There's people like commentators and pundits even saying that maybe can't deal with the incident because one decision was made. Fuck off, lads. Paid fucking money to do this.
The problem is, Andy, the problem is that these are British mistakes, and you got to look at the culture. The British have it's true. Sorry, I don't mean any disrespect, Ray, but the British, and you will know this from dealing with the British government, you know, as a Scouser, what they do is somebody makes a big fuck up, and somebody has to be a scapegoat. Then you'll get a load of them circling their wagons. How people don't understand that if the British government can behave like that, that British sport wouldn't behave like that. It's just a circle of lies. Like, everyone, it's all about protecting. First of all, the position was the incident wasn't reviewed. It was missed. Then it was all of a sudden, it was reviewed, but we decided it wasn't a red cardable offence. This is typical British, you know, which position suits us. It's ingrained in them because they're allergic to accepting accountability. It goes back to Phil's original point as well about the whole virus situation. Nobody wants to be accountable for anything. So it's all about, let's have a little circle of wagons until people, and comfortably, if there's something that can distract the public or everybody else from asking anyone to be accountable, we'll jump onto that. It's just a circle of inaccountability, and it's very typically British, you know.
Can I just jump fucking in here, right? They changed the rule that didn't need to be fucking changed. Okay? It's that simple.
What rule?
Can't get fucking any ease in this. If they don't change the handball, they don't change the offside rule, if they don't change the handball rule, Van Dijk's is a penalty and a red card. Okay. Mane's goal, Henderson's goal stands. This fucking stupidity of moving away from the shoulder point, being here, right? Anything lower than here is your arm, right? That's for over 100 fucking years. Okay. 100 fucking years. That was a hand fucking ball, right? All that there was a hand fucking ball. We have VAR, and for some fucking stupid, brain-dead stupidity reason, they decide that here now is no longer part of your arm. It's the cut-off point. What happens if your arms are massively long? Right, that means that you get an extra 2 foot on somebody else because it's longer than somebody else's arm. Take Pickford. If Pickford was an outfield player, he'd have no advantage. He would have like little hands up here, waving around. His arms start at his shoulders, right?
I think we've seen an alternative example, Andy, of Mane's arms, didn't we, in the WhatsApp group, but we couldn't share it.
But this boils back to the key issue with the implementation of VAR right the way across this. The laws don't make sense in certain points, and secondly, the arseholes in the box making the decisions are the same incompetent fuckwits who are on the pitches not making the decisions. It doesn't make a difference what you do. You take Dicko Mike Dean and stick him in front of a television screen, he's going to make the same shit decisions he makes as he does on the pitch.
On the pitch,
right?
Yeah.
You take this David Cunt fella and you take him out of the pitch and put him in the VAR, he fucks up. He got Lo Celso was nearly killed in a match against Chelsea. He got dropped as whatever he is, right? He comes back.
I was going to say it's
what?
I was going to say it as a baby.
Got dropped on his head. He's from Manchester. He's involved in Manchester football, right? This stupidity is beyond belief when it comes to the PGMOL. They're such a sanctimonious bunch of bastards. They shouldn't be anywhere near a football match, right? They're incompetent, deeply incompetent, and this has to end. I would be actually, the club should be pressing to get rid of all the English referees and bring in foreign referees. I remember when there was
professionals.
Absolutely. There was one of it was Italy. For the big matches, they got rid of the Italian referees completely and brought German officials in to ref the matches, because that way there could be no bias, there could be no favoritism, and there could be no way to do it.
That's a great show, actually.
It is.
In England, there is clear bias on referees' behalf. There is clear bad refereeing decisions, and it's not just Liverpool. I want to get away. This is not a Liverpool thing. This incompetence, this gross incompetence, is literally across the globe, right? When it comes to English football, it's massive, gross incompetence. So I don't know. It's not just a Liverpool thing.
When you mix that confidence with the avoidance of accountability, it's just toxic. For me, I've no problem with people being incompetent. Referees have always been incompetent, and they always will, because the speed of the game. But it would relax things a little if people came out and said, "Listen, that was a mistake." And we'll put measures in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's the problem, is the arrogance. It's the, it happened because this is the real. It's just a load of bollocks. Just put your hand up. Players have to.
It just compounds the original blatant mistake to keep making excuse, layer on layer of excuses. I mean, the reality is,
I'm livid. I'm just.
The reality is, they had about. Van Dijk was down there getting treatment. They had a good 5-6 minutes to have a look through this. There was no rush. There was no rush to get the play back underway because of what was going on with treating the injury. So why they couldn't have twigged it between them, and maybe the first angle, but certainly that angle from behind the goal was just the most blatant angle of all. When
they twigged the offside within seconds. For me, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Ray, about the offside as the letter of the law. But in order to see an offside there, you have to want to see an offside there. And this is my thing about David. You have to want to see. But
this happens. Yeah, this happens far too much. There seems to be a rush to get to a freeze frame where they can then draw the fancy lines and just make it offside.
That's not the case, lad. Seriously,
it does feel like that at times, though.
No. But can I ask you a question? Why doesn't Jerry Mina's right boot count? Why doesn't it count? Because Jerry Mina's right boot is keeping everybody on side.
It's not.
For Mane's goal, it's the boot. That it is the boot. Can I just say it's the technology that picks the nearest point frame that when the ball leaves a player's foot. That's the first thing that happens. So the big complaint about it was one of my biggest complaints, actually. It looked like the ball
had left.
Yeah. But that's the very first frame that they can
isolate.
And that's not to say that it's inaccurate, actually. Like these are milliseconds. There's very little movement. Mane wasn't making a dash and run or anything like that. This was all cleared up as well by your man Dale. There's very little wrong with the technology. In fact, the Premier League have been trying to improve it by asking FIFA to change all these ratios that deals and to make it more closer, and they were denied it. There's nothing wrong with it. It works better in other countries. It's the humans inside it. As soon as humans can get involved, Premier League referees do what Premier League referees have always done. English referees have always done. There's a culture there that they want to be part of the show. They want to have an influence on the outcome. They're not refereeing matches with the objectivity that other refs across the world are. That's why English refs don't get to the World Cup.
Yeah,
because they're not reffing the games without being objective. There's so much subjectivity in the Premier League.
Interpretation,
This goes back to referees, not just the current referees. You're talking Mark Clattenburg, you're talking Howard Webb, you're talking referees before that.
There's so many of them.
This culture is just inbuilt.
Now they're sitting there moving lines around. Look, I don't think they're trying to dictate it like with slopey lines and all. Like they're bending lines. I think was it Henderson said that. It was funny and all, but it's I mean, that's the technology. The behind what we can't see is tons and tons of grades of lines. Everything is angles and perspective, and the technology does all of that. Every line is straight.
But do you think
all I'm saying, Ray, on this is that, and it comes back to this, right? If you have incompetent people making decisions, you get incompetent decisions, right? Like the offsides, I can live with because they're applying what is the letter of the law, and when it comes to the only sort of movable thing is around where they put the point of the arm, saying that that's not a handball, and they've just made that more difficult for themselves. If they'd left it at the shoulder, it becomes a much simpler decision. If that was back at last year's, Mane isn't offside based on the whole shoulder thing. If the cut-off is back to the shoulder, he's not offside, and that's a goal, right? But they've made this, and that becomes, again, subjective. Once you've created subjectivity into this whole argument, that's when it goes wrong, right? So if even people talk about the offside rule to change to daylight, that's black and white. It's simple to do. It makes sense, right? But then it becomes, how many millimeters of daylight are we talking about? So if you can see a fraction of a glimmer of daylight, that is therefore then offside. And if
it just shifts the argument.
Correct.
1 inch, 2 inch, 3. And this is the problem with people. They're listening to assholes like Andy Gray. Like these dinosaurs are putting ideas in people's head. Andy Gray last year was like rubbishing that you use the armpit. What difference does it make if it's the armpit or the sleeve or a nose or whatever or a foot? It doesn't matter. You're still going to have the exact same arguments. And this noise that gets created means that you can't address the real issues. And the real issue of the weekend was the fact that the player wasn't sent off for a reckless challenge and a fucking season ender. And we're talking about fucking offside. Honest to God.
But that's what I'm saying. It suits them to have a distraction. I'll tell you what else as well. And let's be honest. What Jordan Henderson said, whether it be in jest or not, normally speaking, he would be punished for that. Now, I guarantee you he won't. They won't punish him because they're that afraid.
No, again, your man said that he was asked, they covered it up. They said he was asked, did he think it was a red card decision? He said, no, it wasn't. And that's the end of it because they dealt with it on the pitch. I come back to it, right? If that, in my opinion, we've only seen it once this season. The referee has gone over and looked at a monitor on the pitch.
Yeah,
Oliver should have been told to go over.
Yeah, it seemed to be happening in the early weeks, but they seem to have gone away from it completely again now, don't they? It happened a few times in the.
But again, when you have to look at a monitor, it's that thing again, that bravado thing with referees. You're admitting, well, I'm not clear on the incident, so I have to consult. But it's a arsehole.
Pete, that's a very. And I hate to say, but it is a very English mindset thing. It's even down to the referees.
That's what I'm getting at.
If the clubs were to come out and say we want independent referees, there'd be murder. There'd be absolute murder in terms of why did they get independent referees? But you look at Ray, you look at in the States in American football, the actual practice before it goes back to a boot review by somebody in New York that's not even at the game, right? The practice is that the referee will go over and look at the monitor himself and see if he still wants to stay with the ruling on the pitch. And if he can't make his mind up, he can ask then New York to make a ruling for him. And those players go to a boot review, and if they're not quite sure, they go back to the referee and say, look, you have a look at it and you make the call because you're on the pitch. So you've got
that's the issue. Now, if you look at the transcript, and it appeared today, and the Spurs game from, I think it was the year before last, do you remember the penalty on, who's that diving lad they have from Argentina? I can't remember. But anyway, Lovren, they were having a debate on the pitch, the referee and the linesman. Did Lovren get a touch? And in the end, he actually loses the plot. The referee says, I'm giving the penalty. But you can see he sticks out his chest, I'm just giving the penalty. Because again, it's that whole bravado thing. I fucking know what I'm doing. It's the lack of, But
Pete, in Australia, and I see it, and it's not the first time I've seen it because we've seen this done before. In Australia, you can hear the conversation that's going on between the referee and the guy who's looking at the video stream, right? So I come back to this. Having this open transparency takes away this whole view that there's something weird going on in the booth. Because if your man is incompetent, and he makes a wrong decision, then he shouldn't get to do another game. He shouldn't be able to referee at the Premier League level because he's not capable of doing it, and he's not capable of understanding the decisions that need to be made.
He was refereeing today.
Tonight, which is crazy, really.
And this is the typical English response. This is sorry again, Ray, but this is what they do in the UK. Normally, in a normal world, he would be removed, but no, we can't be seen, because then we're showing the world that we doubt ourselves and we doubt him. It's just all bollocks with them. It's the usual fucking. They've been doing it for centuries. They have to show everybody that they can't possibly be wrong. And it's just corruption it's so corrupt. It's unbelievable. And it's not it's not just Liverpool. It's not Liverpool. It's everybody.
But Ray, it's leading to that conspiracy theory mentality, which is there must be something else going on here, as opposed
to cover up and all that.
Like project, is there a backlash because of Project Kickstart? Who knows? But, Liverpool got a huge kick in the bollocks.
Big picture.
Big picture, whatever they fucking call it. Is it? A lot of people thinking maybe it's a backlash. It's a huge coincidence.
It's not. It's like when they do crimes and they look at the investigate crimes that it normally comes back to the simplest explanation, and the simplest explanation is that these guys aren't good at what they do. When it all boils down to it.
If you can't, if you can't hear them, it's a cover up as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So Kieran's making the point that we should hear the refs mic and assistant refs and the booze in Stockley Park.
It doesn't even have to be
saying about Australia. Like Phil is saying about Australia.
It doesn't. Sorry, Andy. You were saying it doesn't have to be live as long as they know there's going to be accountability later on, because people are going to hear what they say the next day or the next week or whenever it is. Yeah.
Just like you could put a data protection order in and produce any piece of information that concerns you. They should be held accountable. The money that's involved. Look, football fans are stakeholders in that league. It's without football fans, there's no football. It's our money and our support that generates the cash for sponsors. We are as big as stakeholders as anyone, and we should have access to what's being said and how the game that we all pay to watch is run. So I don't see how they can possibly get away with continuing on to have no accountability. Okay, there's probably some review board there that's there to regulate the referees, but no. Put it out to the public. What are you afraid of? Exactly. What are you afraid of? Most of us go about our daily jobs now and we're recorded and watched. Why can't they? This is sport at an elite level. And it's billions of pounds every year.
I think in theory, if these fellas were doing their jobs correctly, and they should actually welcome these things being heard, maybe not live, but maybe after the event, because maybe we would have a newfound respect for the job that they're trying to do. But clearly they're not. They're far more insecure than they should be to allow us to be able to watch
anybody
them at work.
Anybody will be insecure about incompetence. I mean, it's there's not enough football people running football. It all comes back to the same thing. There's just not enough actual people that have kicked the ball around or whatever running football. It's just suits that don't know what they're doing. Corporates, nonsense.
Owen Fleming there I do like his comments. It's okay, Pete. We're not English, we're Scouse, yeah. So I can let you off with it. Owen,
bit of xenophobia for the kids.
So Pete, we're going to come on to your subject now, because I think we could go on all night about how VAR is being applied and the so-called expert pundits, how they're taking their position on this stuff. But let's get into the defensive conundrum that we've now got. We've obviously got two very fragile players, although it'd be quite amazing actually if they both made it through to say January time unscathed. You can't really see it. We've got Fabinho, who we've seen in a defensive role, centre back role. I think Andy mentioned it earlier. We've seen Henderson. We've seen Wijnaldum for a game there. What's your approach now if you had to navigate your way through to a potential centre back signing in the January window?
I think, to be honest with you, what we're looking for is a little bit of certainty and leadership back there. Obviously, there's a huge VDV shaped hole in the whole mess. And as I said earlier on, you can't have Adrian, you can't have Joe Gomez, and you can't have Joel Matip, who won't last 2 or 3 games on the trot in that, as I call it, triumvirate. As long as Adrian is there, and it looks like he'll be there certainly up until the City game, for me, you got to have Fabinho in front of him just to give that little bit of assuredness, certainty, better decision making, a little bit better communication. If Joe is going to be the one to play, if Matip doesn't make it, because I think, if you're going to play Fabinho and Matip, maybe you're missing a little bit of force, a little bit of strength, a little bit of energy. But for me, I mean, our keeper, our number one, Alisson, can't come back quick enough. I mean, I'm watching the back forward as it is, and you can see the panic in every situation that Adrian is involved in. It came to a stage against Everton where Adrian was just stood on his line, because I think maybe it's a combination of him being told, don't come for anything, because a couple of things he came for in the Aston Villa game. I mean, Phil is better placed, to comment on goalkeepers than I am, but certainly he looked like he was chasing ghosts, so, he probably would have been instructed by the lads, stay where you are, only come if you're absolutely sure, and he's never absolutely sure of anything. So for me, Fabinho is a must to start centre-back. We need to stop. Don't get me wrong, I think if we hadn't have signed THIAGO, if we hadn't have got that deal across the line, we'd be having a debate about this. But for me, it's not a debate, and I get tired of people's pride and people saying, "Oh, you have to stick with this, you have to stick with." You don't have to stick with anything. You don't stick with anything that doesn't work. I was surprised, to be honest with you, that Jurgen Klopp didn't try to bring in a goalkeeper on loan before even the championship deadline came. So bad is Adrian. I can't think of any other club where the goalkeeper would have conceded 7 goals under any circumstances and played the next game. I can't think of any other club where that would have happened. But you get yourself into a situation where I've made it, I gave this lad me word and I can't break his spirit. No, I'm sorry, you sit the lad down and you say you can't play in the next game under any circumstances. But that issue aside, for me, Fabinho plays, and as much as I harangue him, my preferred partner for him is Joe Gomez, just for that little bit of pace and that little bit of physicality. Sorry, Phil, you were doing a me on it.
I was doing a wave because David Lennon asked Phil to give him a wave, so it just proves he is real.
No, I mean, nothing else.
Go Bears.
So for you, Fabinho, to be the mainstay up until potentially we're able to sign someone else, yeah?
I'm not a fan of having Fabinho with Matip. I don't know. We'd miss a bit of pace, a bit of energy, and Gomez being directed around the park. I mean, there was patches of games. Well, there were when Virgil van Dijk plays. Gomez is a better player. I just think when he's led, he can be a decent player. Gomez. I mean, I know I'm famous for slating him, but it's not the case. He's young. He's a little bit naive, and he has the odd ricket in him. But he can do a job there. But for me, just Matip is not going to give you 3 games in a row. And we need in the run of games we're going to come in. It's vital that we get 8 wins out of 10 for me over the next while, certainly to get us up and through the Christmas. But there's a lot of people talking about Liverpool signing another centre half and going 3 at the back. I don't see why we should have to change the system. I mean, look, if I said to I think it was Phil earlier on, I'm not sure, or Andy, I don't believe that if Liverpool, if this was the Arsenal side of the early 90s and Tony Adams was out, I think it would have more of an effect on them. Liverpool are such a potent attacking threat with such an energetic midfield. It's not that we won't miss Virgil van Dijk, because he adds an awful lot to our attack as well. His final ball from every angle and from every distance is outstanding. We are going to miss that no matter who replaces him. But it's not like we're completely reliant on defending to get through games. Do you understand me? For me, there's more to us than that Arsenal team, but I just think I can't see Matip and Gomez being the partnership. I can see Fabinho in there, and I hope that Klopp sees that as well.
Andy, I'm not going to come to Phil because he's getting annoying now. Andy, can't you watch an NFL game to pass the time, Phil? Before we bring you back on,
it's only PPV got blocked probably.
Andy, Matip was many people's sort of man of the match on Saturday. Have you got a bit more faith in him than Pete obviously has got, or would you just think let's just kind of rotate him in and out because his injury record kind of proves that he's not going to last the run of games?
Pump his legs full of drugs. That's what he used to do.
Like everyone else.
Yeah, we have to do everything we can. It can't have players going out now with niggling injuries now. You'll have to start taking risks on players as well. Someone said in the comments there, Billy the Kid, the way Klopp talked Billy the Kid up was incredible. Like, he talked about him, how ready he was and how mature he was. You know, every season you see a new hero emerge, and you see players and you see things happen in football that you couldn't have predicted. What's to stop Billy the Kid coming into that team?
Even the fact that he's 17 and he got the run around against the fact that he's 17 and he got the run around against Red Bull Salzburg in that friendly, he made their centre forward look like prime Ronaldo. For me, not yet. I understand this. When a lad emerges, and I mean that lad, Billy Cometo, has grown 6 inches or something over the last 5 months. I mean, he's supposed to be a physical phenomenon, but it's kind of Joe Gomez 5 years ago. Do you know what I mean? If he comes in, gets minutes. Same with Van der Berg. That's great.
I'll just look, making the point that sometimes the answers are found in unexpected ways. I remember when Alden played centre back. No, would you even ever consider him playing centre back? If anything, he came into Liverpool and moved backwards, and then he played centre back one day, and he did a fine job. Yeah. Do you remember Mascherano went to Barcelona? Mascherano went to Barcelona as a defensive midfielder, and the size of him, tiny. He played centre back for the rest of his career.
The problem with Mascherano is when he came here to play for them, they tried in midfield, to be honest with you, and because he couldn't, Mascherano's second touch is a tackle, and in England you're a hero for that, but in Spain people are like, listen, your second touch needs to be a very good pass, especially if you're playing in the middle of midfield for Barcelona. So it became, okay, he's good at tackling, let's play him at the back. He won't be that busy. You know, I always had a problem with Mascherano, even when he played for us. I always thought, you know, it was a bit of the Steve McMahon from the 80s, get under people. But if you're playing for Liverpool with 65% possession, you shouldn't be in the tackle all that often. You should be, like a Xabi Alonso, for example, after Mascherano, you should be pinging it around and, you know, enjoying possession. You shouldn't be spending half your career on your arse. Mascherano wasn't for me.
Reese Williams, does he potentially, I mean, do we get to see him on the bench more so ahead of Billy the Kid?
Who knows?
Do I get to talk?
No.
If you behave yourself.
You were still on, Phil. I was checking the score. I was checking the NFL score for you as well.
Come here, look. There's other ways of going about it as well. I'm never a big advocate of over talking formations, but I mean, you can make a little change of formation and put an extra player in beside our deepest midfielder. Have a defensive screen. Limit the chances that are going to create fuck ups for our back four. Protect players that aren't used to playing there. You know, that Klopp will find a way. Don't worry about it. It's not gonna be as bad as you think.
Yeah. Phil, listen, I'm gonna ask you one additional question in relation to this. Selling Lovren in the window and not getting a replacement. How bad was that in hindsight?
But this is a perfect question for Phil.
How bad?
No, Ray, we took a gamble. There's clearly a plan. Generally, when they've created a clear gap in the squad, they have somebody identified, and they weren't able to get them in that window, right? So to let Lovren go and not sign a centre back, to me, says that they have somebody lined up to come in next summer. They had no plans on bringing somebody in winter as a centre back, right? So, and they were prepared to go with the 3 and use Fabinho in an emergency circumstance. The idea of playing Fabinho as a centre-back for prolonged parts of the season scares me. He's done well to drop in an emergency situation, but we could see, even in the League Cup games he played in, once Van Dijk went off, it was madness. that was going on in terms of the back. We conceded about 100 goals to some League 15 team at one stage, right? Well, Reese Williams looks to be a decent player. Cometio looked smashing.
He did look like a baby VVD, actually, to be fair. Yeah.
And Cometio looked great in pre-season. But look, lads, the problem you have with throwing a youngster in it, name the number of under 20-year-old centre-backs playing in top-level teams across the globe. It rarely happens.
Only freaks like Rio Ferdinand, yeah.
Varane at Real Madrid because of an injury crisis. But you look across, normally when they bring somebody in, they bring guys in that has that experience and the know-how and the positional sense to be where it was. I don't see like to me, I think we due to Matip's injury-prone nature, due to the fact Fabinho does pick up knocks here and there. Right, he's not always available. He has missed 4 or 5 weeks ago as well, and we've had to cover that with Milner and Wijnaldum and Henderson last year. I think one of these kids will get a game. I think Williams or Cometio will play a few games for us this season, and then we will have to see how the progression is in the blood and thunder of the Premier League. Because the one thing that we're going to be weak on, unless Alisson just starts coming for absolutely everything, the one thing that we're going to struggle on under, the teams are going to play the same way they played before Van Dijk arrived at this team, and that is to put us under pressure from the high ball. You look at Everton's goals, you look at CALVERT-Lewin, those goals that stopped being scored against us with Van Dijk. In fact, the recent goals that were being scored against us were pullbacks, and they were all along the deck. People don't score goals in the air against us, right? So this suddenly is there when he's not there because his presence is so big. So we need somebody who is a powerful, dominant aerial centre-back to step up from the group that we have to get us through to January. And then when we sign, it depends on whether the guy is available. Are they involved in Europe? We know what happens, but like at the end of the day, we need to have somebody. If Van Dijk is going to be out until next summer or the start of next season, or whatever it is, or September next year, because they want to bring him back, I don't believe he's going to be impacted massively by the injury. It will be a long rehab, but I think he'll be absolutely fine once he comes back. I think any talk about that is ridiculous, right? But you don't. Again, I think it's going to be someone that gets a run and does well, maybe gets 5-6 games and then has a drop off, and that just allows us to get Matip into a run of form, or Matip into 5 or 6 games free of injury, and then you're trying to cover it that way. I'm genuinely nervous about how we do it. It's do you not think, Phil, though, with Thiago being signed, the way he plays kind of protects, and I think Andy made the point earlier on, he protects that back four in a different way. You know, I mean, he's one of the most comfortable players I've ever seen in possession ever. He just doesn't give the ball away. Can he jump 8 foot in the air? No, but maybe he negates the fact that you have to do it by just maintaining it. I haven't seen anyone in years keep the ball as well as he does. All the teams used to do against us was whack the ball at our 2 centre backs. Right, and those two centre backs were Gomez and Matip at the time. And we didn't have anything like we have now in possession. To be at that stage, we were turning the ball over constantly. For me, I look at if Thiago can stay fit, 60% possession becomes 75, 80% possession. You're going to concede. You're right. You're going to concede the odd physical goal. You're not going to get 75, 80% possession. I don't care what you say. You're not going to get it. Right, and Thiago has managed to break 30 games in a season only twice in the last 8 years. That's why I said if he stays fit, it would be a miracle. And teams seem to be targeting him already. But my God, if I was guessing, I'd say Upamecano from Leipzig looks like a likely type of player we'd buy because of the 40 million buyout clause that's available. That seems to be the type of player that we'd go out and sign, and it's the type of deal because it's not 50, it's not 60, it's not 70 million. There's a buyout clause in place, and he has the right profile. He's 23, 24, coming into that age group where FSG would see an upside to his value, that if they get 5 or 6 years out of him, he's still only going to be 27, 28, and potentially like a Lover, and you can still sell him on for a 9, 10, 15 million fee, which then more or less gives them a profit from a bookkeeping perspective. Yeah, 100%. I think he's the one. Someone mentioned it in the chat a bit earlier. When Klein kind of broke down injury wise, we had
the gift of Trent coming into the side. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to have the gift of someone like that being able to step forward. And it is going to have
centre back is massively different as a position to a fullback.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a problem that's solved in the window, and we'll have to just, I guess. The frustrating thing, obviously, is this happens in the very first game after the window closes. That's the absolute irony. It's the worst case scenario. You couldn't have predicted it any worse. And for our rivals, aside from the human side, which is just disgusting to be thankful of an injury to a player as bad as that.
For me, right, I just want to mention the lads are saying that Upamecano deal is only available next summer. It's unlikely. They're saying I would offer him 25 million and Keita to get Upamecano back in January. There's no point in keeping Keita because the fella, like, if it's COVID, if it's an injury, if it's sleeping sickness, if it's something, he can't get a run of 5 games together.
Struck by lightning.
But he's just that type of player. Sometimes it's a bit like Lallana, where Lallana couldn't stay fit for 5-10 games in the season. So I think, like, given that we've got a lot of midfielders, if you're going to lose a player, lose him out of midfield and get a centre back in, and that changes your profile of your team for the rest of the season. And I know people will be like, let's be honest about it. We need a player there for 35 games a season, not a fella there for 3.5 games a season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, Naby Lad is starting to look more and more like a flop every week that passes, and we've had so many false dawns about the fella. I think the patience. Don't disrespect Naby Keita from Osawaya Bagvagatan.
It's a trigger. It's like it's great. All you have to do is say, "Sell Keita."
You mention his name, and it's
watch what happens. Just
we can't.
Yeah, but there are Liverpool fans. There are Liverpool fans that love Paul Pogba as well. For fuck's sake, this doesn't mean anything. Ugh. Anyway,
yeah, but I mean,
all hail Naby Keita.
Yeah, but as there's a comment there that's just come through, from Free World, Keita's been a flop. No shame in admitting that. I mean, not every transfer is always going to work out. At the end of the day, that's just the reality of it. Phil's been banging this drum for a long time about the success rate on transfers. You can't have 100% success rate.
No, and the other thing, I don't class Keita as a flop. For me, Keita just isn't robust enough for this squad.
Yeah,
and that's
when he plays.
Oh, he's been smashing when he's played. He's been, but that's not even half the battle. His biggest battle is getting on the pitch consistently and staying fit. So look, we'll just go into this last bit now. Then we've talked about the drop off and everything, and for me, this league now is absolutely wide open. If you look at the league from when Leicester won the table back in whenever it was 2014, something like that, 2015. They won the league on 81 points. The next best was 71 points. So in theory, they could have won that league on, low 70s. To me, what we're seeing now, we're seeing teams, with the most amount of points above ourselves, who are they're never going to stay there much longer than maybe another half a dozen games. We've seen what Everton, were really made of at the weekend, and they're going to fall away. They're going to fall away, especially when they get a run of difficult games. Villa, I'm sure they'll improve on last season, but they're not going to stay up there. It'll come down to the traditionals, but everyone out there has got so many weaknesses. We've seen Chelsea throwing 3 points away, Tottenham throwing 3 points away. United were on course to drop more points until they managed to score a flurry of goals. And frankly, Newcastle should be ashamed of themselves, only having an own goal to show for, playing that crowd. 2 minutes, gifted the lead after 2 minutes, and they couldn't get the job done. Man City have not really, set the world alight. Just a kind of a workman-like win. I think a lot of teams now don't fear them the way they used to fear them. The false dawn of Leicester's been completely blown away by 2 consecutive home defeats. I mean, this league now, for me, can be won on as lower points as it was for Leicester, if not lower. Things are just going to, you're just going to see strange results after strange results. Andy, I'll come to you first. What's your feeling now on the league in terms of how winnable it is? And you know, you even see it reflected in the bookies' odds. You know, teams like Everton and Spurs, they're not taking any chances with fancy odds anymore.
Yeah, look, until the Virgil injury, I think a lot of fans would have been very confident, overly confident of us retaining the title. There would have been a lot of fans that would have believed we'd still get 90, 95 points. And looking at City there, there you have City absolutely hopped off by Leicester. And then you have Villa, who beat Leicester. And then Villa, who beat us so heavily. I mean, it's such a, we're going to play City in a few weeks. What happens there? Like, it's such a weird cycle of teams doing these things to each other. People are starting to talk about Everton as champions, Villa as champions, Spurs in 1 minute of a game, and then 10 minutes later, Spurs are, you know, like that's how reactionary hot takes in football are. Any team can win 5 games in a row. That's what Villa have done. They've won 5 games in a row. Any team can do that across the course of a season. This is not that the start of the season is enough for sample size to start saying that you're going to win a title. Villa done nothing last year. They dodged relegation. Villa won't win the league. Leicester won't win the league. Spurs won't win the league. The only teams that I personally think can win the league are ourselves and City. And the thing about what you have to do is just get away from the pack. Just start winning games ourselves and let that hope fade away for the likes of Villa and Leicester and Everton. Because at the moment, there's probably a bit of belief is starting to set in, and that's what you don't want. You want with the amount of injury, well, with Virgil injured and the amount of games they have to play, you want to have the Klopp to have the freedom to rotate and to navigate our way through the season, have a bit of joy in Europe and have a bit of joy domestically. The last thing you want is us to be trying to make up ground between now and Christmas. Needs to just win a few games, get our head in the way. It was looking like it for a while onto the Villa game, but build up a head of steam. And I think we can, in 10 games, 12 games, we can start talking about ourselves being champions again. It's just there's an initial shock that comes with losing a player like Virgil. And I think we're still favourites. I think we're far better than everybody in the league. City are the only ones who can raise the standard. So for me, it's just between us and City again. Like, just don't get so engrossed in what's happening 5 games into the season. It is a mad season. It's going to be loads of goals. But Liverpool will steady the ship. City will steady the ship. Like, the quality is going to shine through. There's a lot. It's a long season. And it's the quality that will see the champions through.
Phil, fans being absent from stadiums obviously playing some kind of a factor here. It's unlikely that we'll see fans, based on how the UK is faring at the moment, that we're going to see fans in stadiums this season. Do you see all these freak results just being commonplace now?
Yeah, it's very hard. I know this isn't going to go down well, but outside the Liverpool matches, and even at that, I've little to no interest in the Premier League. Honestly, I look at
less so than previous seasons. Yeah, far less so than previous seasons. Would you say? Right.
I just don't. There's nothing attractive to it. Like, I don't want to watch a United game anyway, ever. Right. So, like, unless we're playing against them, but with no fans there, there's nothing. It's empty. Like, if you put on Sky, you have to listen to that Tyler thing doing a thing, right? You look at the games and it's just completely alien. I'm sorry, but this whole thing has just taken away so much fun in life. This whole pandemic has taken away so much fun in life, and the fact that governments can't put in cogent plans to where we should be at this stage in time is just an absolute crime. They should be sued. They should be sued repeatedly by big businesses and taken down, because what they've done is a dereliction of duty to the whole, to nearly every country that's out there. With the I go back with the exception of the likes of Germany and Denmark, who have literally, and then you look at America where they just don't care and they put like 20,000 people into a stadium. But when you turn on a sport and you see fans in the stadium and you can hear a real crowd again, and you're going, Jesus, it's just such a better spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, and I know some of the lads are bringing up the fact that I want the European Super League. Yeah, but like, I don't want the European Super League if it's going to be just empty stands. Like, it's nothing. It's not football.
Yeah, and there's Kev O'Sullivan was saying that essentially nearly half the games are being won by away teams now. I mean, the whole home advantage is just the whole home advantage has gone completely, hasn't it, Pete? I mean, it's you know, it's just turned the game completely around.
Right. I'll give an example. Right, and someone mentioned it here. The reason why Everton is doing so well is because their fans aren't in the stadium. The reason why United were able to get on that run last year and come back from games they were losing in is because their fans weren't in the stadium. Right. The reason why we started dropping points in games against the likes of Burnley and stuff was because our fans weren't in the stadium. There is an element that when, particularly with top teams that are winning games religiously and going on these great runs, some of that is drawn from the crowd. So that even when they're losing 1-0 with 10 minutes to go, the crowd is there, and you just get this sense. And in the stadium, you can feel that the fans are just waiting for that moment to happen, because the moment always arrives, and that's what we had started to experience in there. Now you look at it and you just don't know. And even at that, you look at.
You mean Phil?
Judge
of all of us, president of all of us,
global citizen leader. Get that on your LinkedIn profile, Phil.
I'm gonna grab my tash back, the one that just goes down here, and we can all get on board, right? But genuinely, I just think it as a product, as something to watch on the television. There's so many better things to watch than watching a football match that doesn't involve your team. And that's because there's no fans there. There's no atmosphere. There isn't that sort of sense of a game, the ebb and flow that sits in a game. When a team that's losing starts getting on a bit of possession and a bit of threat to the losing team, there just has nothing in it. And even to the away fans, like, why would you ever watch a Crystal Palace match? The only reason you'd ever watch a Crystal Palace match is because their fans are mad and they sing non-stop throughout the game, even if they're losing or winning or whatever, right? Otherwise, you're never going to work. I saw people giving out about the £15 thing to watch a match. Like, who in their right mind would, even the fans of Sheffield United, why would they even pay 15 quid? Like, I'd pay 15 quid not to watch a Sheffield United match. Like, that's what we're talking about here.
That's true. Anybody that thought that
it's free in Ireland,
the atmosphere at Anfield in particular was a myth, or that the players aren't lifted by the crowd at Anfield, it's that idea has definitely been put to bed. Phil's right. It's a huge miss. It's a huge miss. The 12th man in the whole experience. It's a huge miss.
The one thing that we're gonna and it'll probably bring it all properly home, I suppose, and into reality, is the fact that we're gonna encounter for the first time very soon a home game, a European home game, where the atmosphere should have been electric, a European night at Anfield in the next few weeks. And I think that's when it'll really hit home that this thing is the biggest shit show that's affecting football right now. You can talk about VAR all you like, you can talk about injuries, you can talk about whatever, but ultimately with no fans in the stadiums, this is just got so soulless. I mean, I'm a fair diehard when it comes to watching fairly meaningless games like Burnley and Sheffield United, but even I'm struggling to turn the TV on and watch some of these now, and if I do, generally I'll last about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing watching this garbage? I need to be doing better things, even washing the dishes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got to that point. It's literally got to that point. So look, we didn't mean to finish this on a low point after Andy got us off to such a big high. So I'm going to do a quick round robin of predictions, Ajax predictions for Wednesday night. Andy, do you expect a big response?
Yeah, I do. It's that thing in football, the bounce. The team talk has already happened, and yeah, I think we get it. I think we get a performance, and we come away with a win 2-1.
2-1. Phil, prediction for where will you be watching on Wednesday, Phil?
I didn't even know we had a game on Wednesday. I'm totally honest about this. Is who are we playing?
Ajax.
Okay.
Come on, Phil.
Is that away or home?
We talked about this.
Yeah.
No, Andy, genuinely, I had no idea we were playing this Wednesday. So it's away.
You're getting too caught up in the pandemic, Phil. There's only so many things to keep us going. The new lockdown measures in Ireland are closing the golf clubs. Like I should be like you. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but all we have now is football.
Literally,
I'm worried because Ajax have a very strong attacking side. But look, we should win it. We've got enough quality. We've got enough class all over the pitch to win it. If we don't win it, who knows? Who knows? Like who knows? Do you know what I mean? But it'll be a high scoring affair because we're incapable of defending with Adrian and goal. So we're going to have to score maybe 4 goals.
Agreed.
To win this, right? So,
give me a prediction.
I think if we're going to win it, it's going to be 7-5. And Firmino's not scored for like the only score when he goes off because he's shit.
You're barred next week.
Oh Jesus!
Nilo in. Fill out Nilo in.
All is forgiven, Nilo. Nilo wanted to talk about shoes tonight
and jackets,
so he was told to take another week to think about his topic.
7-5 is a great game, Andy. You loved that. You were 12 goals.
Yeah. I suppose we shouldn't rule out anything these days. Pete, your prediction?
No, I'm ruling out 7-5. I'm going to say 3-1 Liverpool with Ajax to score first. People forget Ajax every season they're a young team now. I know they've the best academy in Europe, nearly. But every season they lose, every summer they lose 3 or 4 key players. And they don't have a plan B. They play the same honest way and they'll come at us. And they'll score first because Adrian is useless, as Phil says. But we will score 3, maybe 4 goals. So I'm gonna go safe 3-1 Liverpool.
I didn't say Adrian was useless, by the way. I think
he is. I'm saying it.
you can say I just think his confidence is completely shattered.
Yeah, he needs to he needs to keep his head down as well. I'm sick of
it too much.
Tweets at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, stop tweeting. Stop tweeting, please, Adrian. Like another government broadcast.
Delete your account.
Guramaha, good Adrian. Please stop it at the tweeting.
Yeah. I mean, he's like a lottery winner. To be fair, I mean, it's unbelievable. I know. Phil had this conversation a few weeks ago that this is what constitutes a number 2. Someone that can stand there, the gloves fit, and can pull off the occasional save. But my Jesus.
Yeah.
My Jesus.
Well, Dan Jay's predicting Ajax 2, Liverpool 3, Salah, Firmino, and Trent. I'll go one better. I think we'll win the game 4-2. I think it will be end to end. I think there'll be a lot of goals, and I don't think that. Well, certainly whilst we've still got Adrian in goal, I don't think there'll be many games that go past that we don't concede at least 2 goals, based on what we've seen so far.
Adrian, anocht, no big Twitter act.
Right, so we will sign off for a week. 2 more games for us to look forward to, or not, depending on where your mindset is at the moment. But hopefully we can put things right against Ajax on Wednesday and then into the league game at the weekend. So we'll be back next Monday. 4 more topics, 4 more mugs, 4 more lockdown, 4 more lockdown nightmare scenarios for us to go through. So over and out until next week.